You know that sound a server makes right before it dies? It's not a beep. It's not a click. It's the fan pitch dropping slow and quiet like a soldier who's been marching too long and just ran out of road. I've been listening to that sound for 18 years. I know it better than I know most things in my life. My name is Harold Brennan. People call me Hal. I'm 53, and I want to tell you how I got paid what I was actually worth. I'm sitting in a conference room on a Tuesday morning. The room is full of glass and chrome and people who look like they were ordered from a catalog. I'm wearing a polo shirt that's older than the intern taking notes. Andrew Holloway is up front working the room like he was born doing it. Record quarter, Amazon contract locked in. Optimized throughput across 3 regional hubs. He keeps saying we. I start counting how many times he says I instead. By the end of the presentation, the number is 22. Andrew co-founded Tech Logistics Corp with me back in 2010 out of a garage in Tampa. I wrote FlexCore, the logistics platform that runs everything. Every shipment, every manifest, every API call that keeps this company alive passes through code I built on a laptop with a cracked screen while deployed on the USS Missouri. Andrew handled the business side. That was the deal. It worked for a long time. The thing is, back in the Navy, we had a saying, mission first, people always. It meant you get the job done, but you take care of your crew. Andrew used to understand that. We'd work 16-hour days debugging code, and he'd make sure there was pizza and beer afterwards. He'd ask about my son Timothy. Remember when Carol and I were having rough patches? That Andrew, the one who gave a damn about people, that guy disappeared somewhere around year 10. Then he announces the restructuring, workforce optimization initiative, right sizing for competitive advantage. He says this while wearing a watch that could pay off my truck twice. The worst part isn't the corporate speak. The worst part is how he won't look at me while he says it. 18 years, and the man won't make eye contact when he's about to screw over half the people who built this place. I write the number 22 on the back of my agenda and fold it in half. I've been at Tech Logistics for 18 years. VP engineering title, no equity, and a salary that hasn't moved the way the market has. I told myself that was fine. I told myself loyalty counted for something. I told myself Andrew would remember who kept the lights on during the lean years. I told myself a lot of things. The meeting breaks up into smaller groups. Synergistic alignment discussions, Andrew calls them. I watch him work the room, all handshakes and shoulder pats, and I think about the nights we spent in that garage. The mini fridge that only worked half the time. The router we bought at a pawn shop because we couldn't afford a new one. He was different then. We both were 3 days after the board meeting. I'm in the break room eating lunch because the HVAC in the server room is making a grinding noise that drills straight into my back teeth. I've had chronic back pain for 3 years. 18 years of server room posture will do that. In the Navy, they taught us to maintain our equipment before ourselves. Old habits. I'm eating a sandwich and not talking to anyone when Wesley Parker pulls out his laptop at the table behind me. Wesley is 28, junior systems architect. He lists blockchain enthusiast in his email signature. Last week he asked me which port to use for SSH. The week before that he wanted to know why we couldn't just migrate everything to the cloud overnight. Kid's got enthusiasm, I'll give him that. Knowledge is another story. He's showing something to Monica Stevens, the new help desk supervisor. Monica's good people. Former Army IT, knows her stuff, doesn't waste your time with small talk. And they're doing that thing young people do where they whisper loud enough for everyone to hear because they want people to know they have something worth whispering about. I'm not trying to read his screen. I'm really not, but my eyes have been trained for 18 years to catch anomalies. A salary figure on a 15-inch display is not subtle. $145,000 base salary. Junior systems architect, Tech Logistics Corp. I make a $128,000. I have been here 18 years. I wrote the platform he was hired to maintain. I'm on call every hour of every day. When Hurricane Ian knocked out power to our Tampa data center last September, I drove through flooded streets at 3 a.m. to get the backup generators running. Wesley was at a blockchain conference in Austin that week. The number sits in my chest like a stone. I stand up. Don't finish the sandwich. Take the elevator to HR. Sarah Martinez has run HR at Tech Logistics for 4 years. She has a framed motivational quote on her wall about synergy, and she delivers bad news with the warmth of someone who has practiced it in a mirror. She looked up when I walked in and she didn't look surprised. In my experience, HR people are never surprised. They see the conversations coming from a mile away. I didn't sit down. In the military, you deliver reports standing up, force of habit. I need to discuss a compensation discrepancy, I said. I was accidentally CC'd on an internal salary band email this morning. Her hands went to her keyboard, probably pulling up my file. What seems to be the issue, Hal? Wesley Parker is making a $140,000 after 18 thou years. I'd like you to help me understand that math. She folded her hands on the desk. The move was practiced, deliberate. Hal, to attract new talent, we have to be competitive externally. You're on an existing compensation trajectory. I built FlexCore, Sarah. I maintain it. I'm the reason it works. His trajectory and mine shouldn't be in the same sentence. Internal equity and external acquisition are different budget lines. It's not a reflection of your value, then reflect my value. Adjust the number. She leaned back in her chair, that specific sigh, the one that means the conversation is already over, and I should have known that before I walked in. In the Navy, we called it command has spoken. The decision was made before you entered the room. We can't move outside a review cycle, especially not during restructuring. Then she said the thing. She picked up a pen, looked down at her paperwork, and said, "That's just how the market works now. You can work with that or explore other options." Explore other options. Like I was an entry-level kid fresh out of college instead of someone who'd kept their systems running for nearly 2 decades. Like 18 years of loyalty and competence was a liability instead of an asset. I looked at her. I looked at the quote on her wall. I said, "Okay, thank you for clarifying," and I walked out. The drive home that evening was quiet. No radio, just the sound of the highway, and my back aching the way it always does after a day like that. I kept turning the phrase over in my head. Explore other options. It was meant to shut the conversation down. Make me fall in line, accept less than I was worth. What it actually did was open a door I hadn't thought to look for. I wasn't planning to go into the garage that night. I was just moving around the house too wired to sit still. Scout, my German Shepherd, followed me from room to room with that look dogs get when they know something's wrong but can't fix it. He's been my constant companion since the divorce in 2019. Carol got the house in Orlando. I got the dog in a garage full of boxes I'd been avoiding for 4 years. That's when I saw it. A cardboard box in the back corner, duct tape shut, labeled in my own handwriting. Tech Logistics founding, do not toss. Carol had told me to deal with it when we split, clean slate, she'd said. New chapter, I never did. I kept it without knowing why. Stacked behind a broken shop vac and a toolbox I'd inherited from my father. I dragged it out and cut the tape with a box cutter. The smell hit me first, old paper and dust, and that particular scent of electronics that had been sitting too long. Inside, old tax returns, a router manual with coffee stains, 2 dead hard drives from the early days, and underneath it all, a blue binder. Tech Logistics Corp. Founders Participation Agreement. 2010, I sat down on the concrete floor. Scout settled next to me, his head on my knee. The garage was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic on I-4. I opened the binder. The legal language was dense, but I read contracts the way I read code. I parse for structure. I look for dependencies. I follow the logic until I find the condition that changes everything. In the Navy, they taught us to read technical manuals the same way. Every system has critical failure points. You just have to know where to look. I found it in section 12.7, buried between clauses about intellectual property and employment obligations. In the event of the undersigned separation from the company, barring termination for cause, the license granted to the company for use of the core infrastructure architecture defined in Appendix A reverts immediately to the founding partner. Additionally, any reduction in veteran employment below 15% of total workforce triggers compliance review and potential contract renegotiation. Continued use of said architecture without consent constitutes infringement. Buyout must reflect fair market value at time of separation. I read it 3 times. Then I read it out loud to Scout, just to hear it. The dog's ears perked up at the sound of my voice, but he didn't understand what I was holding. 18 years of leverage, gathering dust in a cardboard box. Back in 2010, Tech Logistics was 2 weeks from shutting down. Andrew was sweating through every shirt he owned, sleeping maybe 3 hours a night. The investors were pulling out and he needed me to stay. The problem was he couldn't pay me more cash. The company was hemorrhaging money faster than we could plug the holes, so his uncle's lawyer drafted this agreement. A license and a veteran hiring guarantee rolled into one. Tech Logistics could use FlexCore as long as I was there. If I left, the license died with me, unless they bought the rights outright, which they never did because at the time the company was nearly broke and nobody thought FlexCore would ever be worth much. Andrew thought he was buying time. What he actually did was hand me a loaded weapon and ask me to hold it for him. The veteran employment clause was my idea. I'd seen too many good people, former military, get pushed out of tech jobs because they didn't fit the startup culture. Older, experienced, practical. The kind of people who ask questions like, what happens when this breaks, instead of how can we move fast and break things. Andrew agreed to it because he needed me more than he needed to argue. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Colonel James Rodriguez. Jimmy and I served together on the Missouri 25 years ago. He went to JAG school after discharge, then civilian law. I went deep into network infrastructure. We stayed close the way you stay close with someone who knows what you were like before life got complicated. Jimmy specialized in military contracts and veteran employment law. He also had a personal dislike of corporations that quietly pushed out older workers to save money on benefits. Perfect combination for what I had in mind. I sent him a photo of section 12.7 and typed, hypothetical question, how enforceable is this? His reply came back in under 2 minutes. Not a text, a phone call. Tell me you have the original document, I'm holding it. Hal. He paused, and I could hear him moving around, probably walking to his home office. This is a reversion clause combined with veteran protection language. The moment you resign, their license to FlexCore terminates. They can't run the platform without your authorization. And if they keep running it after you leave, that's willful infringement. What's the veteran employment angle worth? Give me tonight. I need to check their current workforce demographics and federal contract status. If they're doing government work, this gets very interesting very quickly. He hung up. I sat in the garage with Scout, looking at the binder. 18 years of loyalty, reduced to legal language and subsection numbers. But also 18 years of building something that mattered, something that worked, something that made other people's lives easier. At 11:55 p.m., Jimmy called back. His voice had changed, tighter, like a man who just found something in the wall of a house he wasn't expecting. Andrew filed a patent on FlexCore in 2019, under his personal name, not the company's. Didn't consult you, didn't notify you. I was quiet for a moment. The betrayal wasn't just about money, it was about erasure. 18 years of 2 a.m. emergency calls while he slept. 18 years of being on call every holiday, every weekend. Every time a storm knocked out power to the data center, every security patch I'd pushed quietly so clients never knew there had been a threat. And he had gone and put his name on my work like it was his. There's more, Jimmy continued. The restructuring they announced last week, I pulled their current workforce data. It cuts veteran employment from 18% to 8%. That triggers your compliance review clause automatically. Also, the refinance they did in 2021, the $6.2 million bank loan from SunTrust. They used FlexCore as primary collateral, an asset they don't actually own. So when I send the cease and desist, you're not just sending it to Andrew and the board. You're CCing the bank that holds their loan, and you're triggering a federal compliance audit with the Department of Veterans Affairs. They've got Defense Department logistics contracts worth $12 million annually. If they're found in violation of veteran employment requirements, they lose those contracts. I looked down at Scout, his tail thumped once against the concrete floor. In the distance, a train whistle echoed across the Tampa suburbs. Jimmy, how fast can you draft the paperwork? I'll be at your place in 40 minutes. Get the bourbon out. We're going to be here a while. We worked at my kitchen table until 3 a.m. Jimmy had his laptop, his notepad, and the focus of a man who genuinely enjoyed this kind of problem. Scout lay under the table, occasionally lifting his head when one of us got up for more coffee. The bourbon sat mostly untouched. This was work that required clear heads. We went through the 2010 agreement line by line and cross-referenced it against the current FlexCore codebase structure I had documented over the years. The authentication protocol I wrote in that garage was still the spine of everything. Every API call, every database query, every login request ran through my original architecture. They had built a company on top of my foundation and somewhere along the way convinced themselves the foundation belonged to them. Classic corporate amnesia. The people who write the checks forget who built what they're writing checks for. Here's what we're looking at, Jimmy said around midnight, pulling up spreadsheets on his laptop. Current tech logistics workforce is 847 employees. Veteran count is 68, down from 152 in 2021. That's an 8% veteran employment rate, well below your 15% threshold. They've been pushing out the older guys for 2 years, I said, calling it culture fit issues or performance improvement plans. But it's age discrimination, plain and simple, gets better. Their Defense Department contracts require 12% minimum veteran employment. They're in violation of federal requirements across the board. Jimmy leaned back in his chair. The VA compliance office doesn't mess around with this stuff. One audit and they lose every government contract they have. By the time the sun started coming up gray outside the kitchen window, we had 3 documents ready. A formal resignation letter, 2 paragraphs, no sentiment, just facts and timeline. A cease and desist on Jimmy's firm letterhead, citing Section 12.7 and the immediate reversion of all rights effective upon separation, and a term sheet for IP acquisition, $312 million for full transfer, with a clause requiring Andrew's personal patent to be voided and assigned back to me. Jimmy also drafted the notification list, bank, VA compliance office, Defense Department contract oversight. 5 recipients who were about to have a very different Wednesday than they had planned. You sure about this? Jimmy asked, looking at me over his coffee. Once we send this, there's no walking it back. Andrew's gonna fight, and it's gonna get ugly. I thought about Timothy's college graduation 5 years ago. A Saturday in May, perfect weather, families gathered on the quad. I had promised I would be there for the whole ceremony. We were going to dinner afterward, just the 3 of us, me, him, and Carol, trying to be civil for our son's big day. At 11 a.m. that morning, a routing failure hit our primary data center. Complete authentication breakdown. Every client locked out. Andrew was unreachable at a golf tournament in Scottsdale. The emergency phone tree rolled down to me like it always did. I spent 6 hours on the phone walking the junior techs through the recovery procedures while Timothy walked across that stage without his father in the audience. Found out later he'd saved me a piece of cake from the reception and put it in Carol's fridge. He was 22 years old, and he saved me a piece of cake. That's the kind of kid he was, the kind of kid Carol and I somehow managed to raise despite everything. Andrew never mentioned missing the graduation, never apologized. Never acknowledged that I'd spent my son's biggest day fixing problems he should have been there to handle. Just another Saturday, another crisis managed by the guy in the back room while he played golf. Send it, I said. I resigned by email at 5:45 a.m., subject line, resignation effective immediately. 3 sentences, no thank you, no well wishes, just the facts and a digital signature. Then I drove to the office. The parking lot was empty except for the cleaning crew's van and a couple of cars belonging to the overnight operations team. My badge still worked at the side entrance. That wasn't a surprise. Sarah wouldn't process termination paperwork until Monday morning, and Wesley, who was technically the senior architect now, didn't know how to run the access revocation script. I had written that script myself 9 years ago. Nobody else had ever touched it. I took the stairs to the executive floor. The building was quiet except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of vacuum cleaners. I moved quietly down the hallway and pushed open Andrew's office door. He never locked it. Said it was about maintaining an open door culture, but really it was because he liked people to see his corner office with the floor-to-ceiling windows. The room was dark except for the parking lot lights coming through those windows. I walked around his desk and placed a manila envelope in the center of his chair. On top of it, a USB drive. The USB contained 1 file. Read me first, text TIFF, a plain text document. 18 years of incident reports. Every 2 a.m. emergency call. Every weekend I'd spent in the server room while he was at barbecues or kids' soccer games. Every security patch I'd pushed quietly so clients never knew there had been a threat. Dates, times, incident numbers, resolution details. No emotion, no commentary, just the record of what I had actually done while he was taking credit for it at board meetings. I wrote 2 words on the front of the envelope in black Sharpie. Fair market value. Then I walked out. The morning air outside was cold and smelled like wet asphalt and jasmine from the landscaping. I sat in my truck for a moment before starting the engine. I had just resigned from the only job I'd held for 18 years. I had just left an envelope on the chair of a man I used to call a friend, and somewhere in the back of my head, a voice was asking whether I had just made the worst mistake of my life. I drove to a Waffle House 2 blocks from the office. Jimmy was already there, coffee in front of him, laptop open. At 6 a.m., the place was mostly empty except for a couple of truckers and a waitress who looked like she'd been there since the Carter administration. You good? Jimmy asked as I slid into the booth across from him. Ask me in an hour, I said. I ordered coffee and eggs I knew I wouldn't finish. We had a view of the Tech Logistics building through the restaurant windows. The lights on the executive floor came on at 7:15. Andrew's silver Porsche pulled into his reserved spot at 7028, right on schedule. The dead man switch was built into FlexCore's authentication layer. I had coded it in 2012 as a maintenance safeguard, a license token that needed manual renewal every 30 days via a command line script only I knew how to run. It was part of my regular routine, quiet and invisible, the kind of background process that keeps systems running and nobody thinks about until it stops happening. I hadn't run the renewal this month. When the system pinged for the token at 8 a.m. and got nothing back, it would automatically drop into trial mode. Trial mode allowed a maximum of 5 simultaneous connections to prevent abuse by people trying to reverse engineer the platform. On a normal morning, FlexCore handled 4 2200 enterprise connections across 3 time zones. I opened my laptop and pulled up the external status dashboard that clients use to monitor system health. Green across the board at 7:58. Still green at 7:59. At 8:02, the latency indicator spiked yellow. License verification pending. At 8:04, the dashboard went red. System degraded, connection refused. By 8:07, it read service interruption, status critical. Jimmy looked at the screen and said nothing for a moment. Then he picked up his phone and sent the email. Cease and desist to Andrew, to Tech Logistics General Counsel, and CC to SunTrust Bank holding the $622 million loan against FlexCore as collateral, plus the VA Compliance Office and Defense Department contract oversight. One email, 5 recipients who were about to have a very different Wednesday than they had planned. My phone started ringing immediately. Monica first. Hal, the system is doing something weird. Can you log in and check? Then Sarah. Hal, we need to speak right away. There's been a misunderstanding. Then Andrew. 6 calls in 8 minutes. No voicemails. Just the insistent buzzing of a man whose world was falling apart in real time. Finally, a text. Is this some kind of joke? Call me now. I put the phone face down on the Formica table and drank my coffee. The waitress refilled my cup without asking. She'd seen enough drama in her years here to know when someone needed to be left alone. At 8:45, Jimmy's phone rang. He looked at the screen. That's their general counsel. He let it go to voicemail, then played it on speaker for me. The voice was clipped and running fast. Jimmy, it's Paul Richardson from Tech Logistics Legal. We have multiple situations developing simultaneously. Someone left documents on Andrew's desk, and now our core platform is offline. We also have the VA Compliance Office calling about workforce audits and the bank asking questions about collateral assets. We need to discuss immediate resolution. Call me. Jimmy typed a reply instead of calling. He showed me the screen before hitting send. Cease and desist stands. License reverted per section 12.7 upon resignation. Term sheet attached. Buyout price $3.2 million. Price increases $75,000 for every hour the system remains offline. Clock started at 8 a.m. I watched the status dashboard on my laptop. The red bar sat there steady and unblinking. Somewhere in Tennessee, freight trucks were sitting idle at loading docks. In Texas, warehouse managers were calling their supervisors asking why the manifests wouldn't load. The Amazon regional hub outside Nashville was probably switching to backup systems and calculating penalty fees. For a moment, just a moment, I felt the weight of it. People depending on systems I'd built now locked out because of decisions made in boardrooms by people who'd never written a line of code. Then I thought about all the other people. Monica, trying to help customers while earning $35,000 a year. The veteran employees who'd been quietly pushed out over the past 2 years. Wesley, making $17,000 more than me while asking me how to configure basic network settings. The junior developers who'd be blamed for this outage even though they had no access to fix it. Sometimes the only way to save a system is to break it first. Force everyone to acknowledge what they've been taking for granted. At 10:15, Andrew called again. I let it ring twice, then answered, "What have you done?" Not a question. His voice was tight and running too fast. I resigned, Andrew. As of 5:45 this morning, the license reverted per the 2010 agreement. You planted some kind of kill switch in my system. It's a standard license verification protocol. Been there since 2012. You would have known that if you'd read the codebase documentation at any point in the last decade. Turn it back on. We are hemorrhaging money every minute this thing stays down. I know that's why the term sheet has a clock on it. Jimmy sent it this morning. His voice dropped. The panic shifted into something else, something more calculated. Hal, come on, we built this together. You know that. What do you actually want here? More money? Fine. 15,000? Done. Just get back in here and fix this. I looked across the booth at Jimmy. He shook his head slowly. That offer was relevant yesterday, I said. Today, this is an intellectual property acquisition conversation. My lawyer has the terms, have your counsel call him. You can't be serious, Hal. We're talking about 18 years of partnership here. You filed a patent on my code in 2019 under your personal name. You used my architecture as collateral for a bank loan without telling me. You've systematically cut veteran employment to save money on benefits. And when I asked Sarah for fair compensation, she told me to explore other options. I paused, I explored them. He started to say something. I ended the call. The negotiation took 3 hours. Patricia Holloway, Andrew's sister and the company's CFO, took over around noon. She was smart enough to understand the situation and practical enough to cut her losses. By 1:30 p.m., we had a deal. $3.2 million for full IP transfer. Andrew's personal patent voided and assigned to the transfer agreement. A public statement acknowledging that FlexCore was designed and built by me. And a commitment to restore veteran hiring to 15% within 6 months. When Jimmy confirmed the wire transfer was in motion, I opened a terminal window on my laptop, typed the license renewal command I'd been running manually for 11 years, hit enter. The authentication server accepted the token in under a second. FlexCore ran its integrity check, restored the connection limits, and brought all modules back online. On the status dashboard, the red bar turned yellow, then green. All services operational, total downtime, 5 hours and 23 minutes. Jimmy poured bourbon into our coffee cups. We sat there watching the tech logistics building through the window, neither of us saying much. There wasn't much that needed saying. The money cleared the next morning. I paid off Timothy's student loans before I did anything else, then the mortgage. Then I bought a truck that starts on the first try in cold weather, which matters more than it sounds when you've spent 3 winters with a vehicle that didn't. Wesley quit 6 weeks later. Turns out maintaining a platform you don't understand is a different job than interviewing for one. Monica got promoted to senior systems administrator with a $40,000 raise. Andrew kept his title but lost operational authority to a new COO Patricia brought in from Atlanta. I'm writing this from a screened porch in the Florida Keys. Scout is 10 now, moving a little slower but still good company. I've got a consulting contract with a defense contractor in Jacksonville. They pay me $200 an hour to solve problems that stumped their internal teams. Work when I want, fish when I don't. Last month, Timothy sent me a text. Dad saw your name in a tech blog about the tech logistics situation. Article said you built their whole platform. I had no idea. I'm proud of you. I read it twice, then deleted the FlexCore status monitoring app from my phone. Didn't need it anymore. If you've spent years being the person who keeps everything running while someone else takes the credit, if you've been told your experience is a liability instead of an asset, if someone has looked you in the eye and said you should be grateful for less than you're worth, then you already know what this story is about. It's not about the money, though the money was right. It's about the moment you stop negotiating with people who were never negotiating in good faith. You built something, you know what it's worth, make them acknowledge it. Fair market value. Finally.
I'm freezing. I'm bleeding. Slowly fading away. But don't worry. I'm fine. The cold has settled in my heartbeat, like winter living in my veins. Every breath feels numb and fragile. Every smile just hides the pain. I'm breaking quietly in silence, falling slow without a sound. Yet I keep saying I'm okay, while my world burns to the ground. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry. I'll pretend till my last breath, even while my soul is fading. I'll say everything's okay. Maybe pain just learned to live here. Maybe sorrow feels like home. So I wear my wounds like armor and survive them all alone. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry. I'll pretend till my last breath, even while my soul is fading. I'll say everything's okay. If you ever see me smiling, no, it's just my last defense. 'Cause sometimes love means hiding how much you're suffering. No, I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry. I'll pretend till my last breath, even while my soul is fading. I'll say everything's okay. It's okay. They say just forget. Move on like it's easy. But forgetting you feels like remembering someone I've never seen. I've been trying to erase you from the places in my mind, but the harder that I fight it, the more you're hard to leave behind. Every memory keeps slipping through the cracks I try to close, like a face I should remember, but somehow never know. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. Every moment turns to fragments, every thought just fades to blue, like I'm searching for a feeling that still only leads to you. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. If I never met you, maybe I would know just how to heal, but now every empty moment still reminds me what is real. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true.